12, 11, 10, 9. Dimension sequence initiated. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Launch. We have a launch. Today we are in Florida. Florida is a state that is located far south in the United States. It's easy to remember because it's that little strip of land, that peninsula that's there to the east of the Gulf of Mexico. And Florida, being a state that is very close to the equator, is a very good place for us to take advantage of the Earth's rotation and launch rockets. So today we're going to Cape Canaveral to meet the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Let's check it out. With all the cool stuff at National Aeronautics and Space Administration, we could start a new channel and post daily videos. But we have permission to film for 3 hours here inside the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center. So we decided to choose the most impressive and coolest thing that we could get close to show you. This beautiful thing you're seeing behind me is a Saturn V rocket. Not only is it one of the largest and most powerful rockets of all time, but it is also with this rocket that man reached the moon. It's not with this exact rocket, but with a model of it. This rocket that you are seeing is real. It was never launched because the program it was part of was canceled. But it is not a replica, no, this rocket is real. It is 111 meters tall, equivalent to a 36-story building. When it took off, it weighed nearly 3,000 tons, or about 400 elephants. The first Saturn V was launched in 1967 on the Apollo 4 mission, with nobody on board. But the highlight of this machine was the first trip to the moon in 1969. And the last mission took place in 1973 when the Saturn V launched an American space station called Skylab. If you don't understand how a rocket works, it's quite different from an airplane because the rocket leaves pieces behind as it starts to fly. Why does it leave pieces behind? It has several fuel tanks, and as this fuel gets consumed, it must throw away the fuel tanks because they are very heavy. It has to keep reducing its own weight. The Saturn V is divided into 3 stages or 3 floors. 3 parts that carry fuel have engines and are discarded as the rocket flies. Let's understand a little bit about how these 3 stages work. The first stage is the largest of all and is responsible for lifting the rocket off the ground. These little engines that you're seeing here use a fuel called RP1. It's a kind of kerosene. And to burn the kerosene, this part also carries liquid oxygen. And it was in the first stage where the most powerful engines were, as they were the ones that lifted the weight equivalent to 400 elephants off the ground and took it up to 68 kilometers high. This took only 2.5 minutes, and then the whole first stage was discarded into the sea. The second stage, with 5 engines, propelled the rocket to an altitude of 115 miles. The fuel mixture it carries is a bit different. It burns liquid oxygen mixed with liquid hydrogen. And all of this, once again, was dumped into the sea when the fuel ran out. Third stage, the same fuel mixture, but it only has 1 engine. It's the one that's going to make the rocket enter orbit around the Earth, spin 3 times, and then head towards the moon. When this stage finished burning, the rocket was already at 40,000 kilometers per hour. And the engines and tanks were discarded in space or fell on the moon. After these 3 stages, we reach a kind of ring, which is the instrument module. This is what controls the rocket. It's kind of like the brain of the rocket. And it's only after all of this that we reach the Apollo spacecraft, the part where people stay. The white part you see here is the Apollo spacecraft, which contains 3 crucial elements: the lunar module, the command module, and the service module. The lunar module is designed to land on the moon's surface. The lunar module is a small spacecraft that separates from the main craft and lands on the moon. It carried 2 people, a bunch of research instruments, and then it still had to come back to meet the other spacecraft. That's why the lunar module had its own engine, and since this module only flew in the vacuum of space, it didn't need to have this aerodynamic shape like the rocket does. The second part is the service module. In addition to carrying fuel for the ship to fly, it carried oxygen, water, and electricity. And let's not forget, at the end of the service module, there was an engine, which not only put the ship in orbit around the moon, but also provided the propulsion for the ship to return to Earth. And finally, after so much engine and so much fuel, it was in this tiny little space here, in the command module, where the astronauts were located. It served as a cockpit, office, kitchen, bedroom, and even bathroom. It was home to the 3 Apollo mission astronauts. If you ever see an image of such a rocket being launched, you will notice that there is a kind of a little missile, a rocket on the top of it, a tiny one. It is attached to the command module, and in case of emergency, during takeoff, it is this little rocket that can save the astronauts' lives, ejecting the command module from the rocket. As incredible as it may seem, all this expensive and gigantic technology is discarded. It is thrown away. There is only one thing that returns to Earth, which is the command module. It is this capsule here that will bring the astronauts back. This capsule hasn't been to space, but we'll now see one at National Aeronautics and Space Administration that has. This here is one of the greatest treasures of space exploration. It's the capsule of Apollo 14, the command module of the Apollo 14 mission, which ascended on a Saturn V rocket, which we were just looking at. It was launched in 1971 and took the astronauts to the moon, and most importantly, it accomplished the mission, brought everyone alive back home. One of the biggest challenges in building a capsule like this is that when it re-enters the atmosphere, it happens like a shooting star, a meteor. It's going to heat up a lot. So this equipment needs a very special coating to not roast the astronauts and bring everyone back safe and sound. Mission accomplished. Thumbs up. More cool trips like this one you take with us at the World's Manual. If you want to get to know Florida a bit more, we filmed a video here showing how inertia works using a Disney toy. The link is here. On the other side, I will show you how to make a rocket with vinegar.